And hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd. Today we are talking movies with Professor O, and Professor O is, of course, joining us from his study in Oklahoma. You have braved the storms there, have you not?
Yet again, two this week, and brave the dogs who need just a little bit of courage. But and I don't blame them. It really, yeah, those thunder boomers shake the house. But we made it through, and here we are. We abided the storm.
Yes, and we're going to be talking about abiding today when we talk about the Big Lebowski. We did Jeff Bridges last week, and so I thought that it was only right to do a good Jeff Bridges movie. In fact, probably the definitive Jeff Bridges movie. Let's start out with the description. I usually give a description basically of the film, but in this case, the first lines of the picture delivered by the stranger, played by Sam Elliott, say this: way out west there was a fella I want to tell you about, fellow by the name of Jeff Lebowski. At least that was the handle his loving parents gave him, but he never had much use for it himself. Mr. Lebowski, he called himself the Dude. Now, Dude, that's a name no one would self-apply where I come from, but then there was a lot about the dude that didn't make a whole lot of sense, and a lot about where he lived, likewise. But then again, maybe that's why I found the place so darned interesting. They called Los Angeles the City of Angels. I didn't find it to be that exactly, but I'll allow there's some nice folks here. Of course, I can't say I've seen London. I ain't never been to France, and I ain't never seen no queen in her damned undies, so the feller says. But I'll tell you what, after seeing Los Angeles and this here story I'm about to unfold, well, I guess I seen something every bit as stupefying as you'd see in any of them other places, and in English, too. So I can die with a smile on my face without feeling like the good Lord gypped me. Now, this here story is about to unfold. It took place back in the early 90s, just about the time of our conflict with Saddam and the Iraqis. I only mention it because sometimes there's a man, I won't say a hero, because what's a hero? But sometimes there's a man, and I'm talking about the dude here. Sometimes there's a man. Well, he's the man for his time and place. He fits right in there, and that's the dude in Los Angeles. And even if he's a lazy man, and the dude was most certainly that, quite possibly the laziest in Los Angeles County, which would place him high in the running for laziest worldwide. But sometimes there's a man. Sometimes there's a man. Oh, I lost my train of thought there, but oh hell, I'm done introducing him. Enough. You can pretty much pigeonhole the entire movie in this opening because if you try to follow a plot, if you try to make it make sense, it's going to be completely confusing for you. At the very base of it is kind of a Raymond Chandler novel if you replace the detective with a stoner who doesn't want to be part of any of it, but all the intrigue goes on around him and all the twists and turns in it, which make it kind of an interesting story, but you don't really have to follow it that closely because neither are most of the characters.
Well put. Neither are most of the characters. And one up, like we were talking about before the show. Right, right. Replace, yeah, your hard boiled detective with the dude, and everything else follows. But yeah, we were talking about how the Big Sleep, with the kind of Raymond Chandler
Yeah.
background fits into, and then the movie directed by Howard Hawks fits into some of the basic plots. The father of the two daughters in the Big Sleep is in a wheelchair. And if I've and it's been a while since I've seen the film, I haven't, and I'll be honest, I've actually it hadn't been that long since I've seen the
Actually, I
film.
watched it last night, so I have
You
it very
watched the
very
big,
fresh in
oh,
my life. Yeah,
oh, that's
it's one of those you have to watch several times before you even understand what it's about, and then you
oh
have to just realize that it's not about really much of anything. But
no, the
there
plot
is
is
one
indecipherable.
Raymond Chandler. There is one Raymond Chandler direct reference when an actual private investigator, which is late in the film, identifies himself as a brother Seamus.
Mm,
and
that's
that goes
right.
back. That is a term that's used in the Chandler novels because in the 40s that was understood. A Seamus was a derogatory term for an Irish cop, and a brother
Ah,
Seamus would be a private investigator.
you
And
know, we've learned a
so
lot of terms like a gunsel from those films. That's
Gunsel from yeah from
the
uh,
Maltese Falcon.
Maltese Falcon, and of
Right,
course yeah there's of course other things to describe. He also described himself as a dick, which is close kind of an abbreviation for detective,
right.
and uh, gumshoe, which I don't think was used in this or anything else we've talked about already, was indicated someone who sneaks around. They would wear
Ah,
gum shoes, that is to say, so they wouldn't make any footstep sounds.
wow.
So
That's a high
yeah,
price
so
of,
you
yeah,
have there are any number, and of course PI has become more popular in more recent decades. But
right.
in the 40s, they had to have slang for just about everything along this line, at least in the books.
Well, how does the so this is, and I saw this film, yeah, I want to say maybe because the Maltese Falcon inspired me to go back and watch it again because I'd only seen it in films could have been years ago. So
Yeah,
the father of the two daughters, which really compares from the Big Sleep to the Big Lebowski, father
yeah.
in the wheelchair. How does he compare? Is he as like is he as upfront, well, pull up yourself by the bootstraps, boy? Is that does he embody that kind of character in the Big Sleep?
I would say that he certainly has the same bluster, but as it turns out, and we're not giving anything away to tell you all of this stuff, is that nobody is who they claim to be, except for the dude. I mean, we
Well,
have we in previous handling of the script, for instance, Walter had never been to Vietnam,
right.
and despite the
Ah,
fact that all he talked about was his time in Vietnam, he was never there. And it says something about people. I've known, our generation have had people that went to Vietnam. Those people who actually went to war never talked about it when they came back. And those that talked
good
about it
point.
all the time either never served or served in peacetime. And so we see that kind of dynamic there. And
That's a good point.
also, left out of the script was the dude seemed to have some kind of income, although they never explained what it was. And an early draft of the script had that his grandfather had invented the Rubik's Cube. And so it paid enough royalties for him to stay in White Russians and this little apartment that he had. But that's
And could
that's kind of that thing there.
could actually live the philosophy of his life,
Yeah,
live his
yeah.
philosophy without having to, yeah, basically not
But
having
to
to have a
explain that,
job.
they cut it out because to explain that would have put some sense to the plot of this movie. They really didn't need that in order to establish this character. He
Yeah,
obviously had just enough money to get by some means, and his friends were all just kind of they almost thought about making Donnie imaginary. That he was going to be basically in Walter's uh, subconscious, who'd lost him in Vietnam or something like that, and he never came to terms with it. And so he's referring to Donnie, and nobody else in the cast does. Except, of course, they decided against that, and there are three places where dude actually speaks to Donnie directly. But
that's a good. I almost, when you mentioned that, I almost thought, I wonder if that could actually hold up. But you're right, he is directly addressed, and
yeah,
is he ever directly addressed in the bowling alley by anybody other than? I just wonder.
no, no.
No, no, he's not. That that's okay. Before we leave the Big Sleep, so the two daughters are pretty clear. You got
Well,
uh
there's in this case there is a stepdaughter, and
right,
then there is a um, very
stepdaughter
young.
slash wife.
Well, yeah, she's not even a stepdaughter. She's just she came from North Dakota or something like that,
Exactly.
or Moorhead, Minnesota is where she came from,
Right.
and she came to Hollywood, and he took her in and as presumably married her, but
The Lebowski. Yeah, yeah.
but
Presumably,
yeah, obviously she was probably younger than the stepdaughter was. So
one
we don't
thing.
have any indication the Big Lebowski had any kids at all.
Yeah, one thing that kind of gets lost in the plot too, and The Big Sleep is such a great film to compare because there's you can so easily. I mean, people have watched it hundreds of times, and
Yeah,
they still go, well, no, this doesn't quite add up. But the fact that the stepdaughter goes off to she just goes off somewhere and then gets bored and comes back, and you kind of lose track of it, and then you see her coming back, and it just with all her toes
yeah.
and
She's not kidnapped. She doesn't lose a toe. The Big Lebowski wasn't exactly rich. He was living off an allowance. The Walter was not Jewish, although that's a big thing that he was talking about all through the film. And let's see, who wasn't something else. Just about everybody else was an imposter in one way or the other. The nihilist, for instance, were porn actors who uh, didn't quite know how to do it right.
and
I
supposedly
did love a line in here where they first get him and they force his head into the toilet and they said, "Where's our money?" And he says, "Dunk me again, maybe I can find it."
yeah, exactly. That's a great line. I mean,
It really is. It really
from the
is.
beginning, you could tell you're just not the dude does get thrown off sometimes. Sometimes he actually will get angry or and lose that dudism vibe, but not there. And I love the way that he's getting his head dunked at. Dunk me again. That was a great line.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Maud, the actual daughter of Lebowski, the
Well,
older Lebowski
it was stepdaughter.
stepdaughter. That's right. That's right. Maud actually does play.
Julianne
Yeah,
Moore plays this part, who
right.
interestingly was pregnant while this film was being shot, but she didn't tell the Coens about it because she wanted to do that shot in her gallery where she's painting from a sling on a track.
Right on a fly
So
wire. Yeah,
yeah, that flyway, she wanted to be on that, and she's naked in that, and so they wouldn't have allowed that if they'd known she was pregnant. So
pregnant.
she just didn't
And so
tell them.
Lauren Bacall kind of plays her character in The Big Sleep. And I had
Yeah,
missed the Sheamus, and I love the yeah. That's a great comparison because that absolutely follows up in near the end of The Big Lebowski.
yeah.
And
But let's talk
but
about
yeah,
this cast. Let's talk about this cast. First of all, the Coens wrote this film with the idea of John Goodman and Steve Buscemi in it.
right.
And I think John Turturro as well. They gave him a very small part, but that was the three
Oh, but he makes the
actors they
film
had in mind. They didn't know who they were going to do for the dude, which is amazing
interesting.
because Jeff Bridges said sometime later to the when he first read the script, he said to the Coens, "Did you people hang out with me in high school?"
Right, right.
But there is something in here where okay. Um, the original idea was that well, their dream candidate for this role was uh, uh, Marlon Brando. They knew they'd never get him, but they had in their mind when they were writing it, it was Marlon Brando as a dude. I can't see that.
Oh no.
They tossed some other names around. Robert Duvall, who passed on the idea. Anthony Hopkins had no interest in playing an American. Gene Hackman, who for one
Oof.
reason or other
No.
wouldn't take it,
Nope.
and they even thought about Norman Mailer, George C. Scott, Jerry Falwell, Gore Vidal, Andy Griffith, William F. Buckley, and Ernest Borgnine for all love. That's those were all.
Of all that list, I could see Ernest Borgnine for some reason. I just, yeah, he had a lot of flexibility, but Jeff
They might as
Bridges
well
is
have put
perfect.
Walter Brennan in that list.
I'm surprised he's not on the list. I would have loved to have heard him talk through the movie, though. That that
Can you
Walter Brennan
imagine
is.
though? Andy Griffith is a stoner.
Oh God, no. That's jeez. I mean, none of those are even close. That Jeff Bridges is perfect. It's just absolutely perfect.
But
Yeah.
anyway, a great cast with Jeff Bridges, who once they got him there, they realized he was just absolutely perfect for the part, and he knew how to do it. In certain scenes, he would ask the Coens, "Did I burn one before I got into this scene?" And they'd say, "Yeah." And he would use his knuckles to make his eyes red, so that he would look the part when he got in. So he very much. And they did a lot of improvising, but there was only one line of his that actually was improvised that made it into the film.
Wow.
And
That's
that's
amazing.
where he called the Big Lebowski a paraquat, which that was ad libbed. And paraquat was a chemical they sprayed on marijuana to make it wilt. For the people who were trying to eradicate the marijuana trade. And
Would put on.
what would happen is that the farmers would realize this. They would harvest it very quickly and sell it, and that became what they called killer marijuana. It didn't
Ah,
actually kill
wow.
anybody, but made people sick.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I did not know. That's interesting. That
But
you
yeah,
never know what you pick up.
no, that
That that is
you learn something even from movies about stoners. So
well,
there
another
you have
word
it.
that is not tossed around, starts with a P, is a pederast, is not tossed around very, you
That's
don't.
an antique term for pedophile, but yeah,
Right.
it was accurate. And once again,
Yeah, it was
right in character for Walter, played beautifully by John Goodman here. John Goodman said later that this is probably his favorite movie that he's ever been in. And I can
Oh,
understand why
and
he is able to chew the scenery with this in his anger management, his faux Judaism, his uh, Vietnam flashbacks, and just the take when they released the ashes, I think was that's a mark of a good actor. You could see the expression on his face and on Jeff Bridges' face when the literal blowback happened.
You were there at the
Yeah,
funeral at the yeah.
yeah. They decide that $130 is too much for their cheapest
Right.
earn, and so they go get a Folgers coffee can and try to scatter the ashes over the Pacific Ocean, and the wind is blowing the wrong way, and just
Did
cakes
not
the both of
compensate for
them.
the win. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's oh yeah, I would love to see. As far as I know, there is not like a true special edition of this film
no,
with that's packed with all the goodies. I mean, the a Criterion version of this film would be fantastic.
yeah. There was a movie that was or a documentary made on how it was made, and there's some reference to it, but I don't know where to find it. Just a moment.
Oh, yeah, because just to watch the outtakes of that scene with the ashes would be incredible, and some of the alternative takes with Goodman's yeah, he just chews up the scenery, and just eats this film up. Yeah, I'm wearing my homage to some sort of war, World War II, which was a lot in some
Yeah,
respects a lot different than Vietnam, but got my World War II museum shirt on. but
yeah,
yeah, that's but such a, and then of course the actual war, another war that was actually happening that's referenced is of course the 1990 first Gulf War that is referenced a lot in the film in an interesting way.
yeah,
Um, and I'm yeah, we always talk about when the film. It's funny that what really gets your attention is the Coen's use of genres, mixing of genres. You got
yeah.
Sam Elliott that coming from. I mean, he's not the Westerner, which does not belong in this genre at all. And
Right.
it's like he's as confused as anybody as to why he's even there, and you can tell that in his narration, uh, which just fits into the
Yeah,
vibe of the
I think
film.
just grabbing onto the idea of dude, you think of cowboys and dudes, and
Right.
so with that, playing on that double meaning, uh, worked, and
But
so
it works, but he's
but
completely confused as to why.
yes,
I mean, yeah, it's
I
even the
would say
dude is like, "Why are you here?" It's
yeah, yeah, and that he's only billed as a stranger, so I suppose that's just as well. But he seems to be bemused by all of this, and of course he's telling the story and appears in the story, kind of a Vonnegut touch there. But
Bemusement is perfect for that. To
yeah,
give him, yeah, to be a couple of steps removed, to bemused,
yeah.
to look at what's going. Yeah, this train wreck. Yeah, that's well put.
Yeah. Well,
One
I
character.
think we need to just mention just how wonderful this casting was.
Yeah, I was
Julianne
going to
Moore
say John
plays this
Turturro.
perfect counterculture artist, uh, nepo baby kind of part, and then Steve Buscemi,
Oh,
does
just
Donnie
fantastic.
just they
The
just
real
perfectly
moment of
cast. David
pathos in the
Huddleston
film.
is who you'd expect to be some wealthy industrialist blowhard stuffed shirt. And he works very well in that. Philip Seymour Hoffman is just a blank slate. I think you could drop him in anything and he could assume that character. And
Right.
so
Oh, but he was
he's the fuss
perfect. Just
budgety butler in this. And
but
then yeah,
also subservient.
yes,
He gives that perfect amount of, I mean, absolute subservience
yeah,
and to what to somebody that completely doesn't deserve it, and which of course is a lot of subservient people do that, and
yeah,
giving it to, yeah. And I love John Turturro in this film, just
yeah.
as Jesus. He is
Except they don't pronounce it Jesus. They call him Jesus. He calls himself Jesus.
This is true. That
And
is exactly right. That's exact. And of course, he's of course a regular of the Coen brothers.
sure,
And I was checking. Yeah, he's in Oh Brother
he was
Where
no
Art
brother
Thou?
art now. Yeah,
And let's see, Miller's Crossing,
yeah,
and Barton Fink, also
yeah.
Coen brothers films. But just perfect in this film. And he's the one character that is John Goodman's equal when it comes to chewing
Well,
up
yeah,
the scenery.
and because he's worked so much with the Coens, they gave him a wide latitude of how to do his character. The polishing the
Oh,
bowling ball, the licking the bowling ball, the little dance that he did, which he was embarrassed about later. They say was all his doing,
oh,
and so he took a small part and stole a couple of scenes in doing that.
Stole. It's one of the best small parts. Oh my goodness, just
Yeah,
incredible. And I mean, even this, I don't. I want to get us back to the cast too, but even the bowling ball itself and the bowling alley is almost a character. And I've never, I mean, to actually go inside a bowling ball, where it picks
that
up
was
the
clever, and you know how they did that, right?
no.
They took a grill spit and
Yeah.
they put a camera on the dolly behind. I mean, on a dolly, and then had the camera mounted on a spit basically, and rotated it as they were pushing it down the alley.
Ah,
And then
that's
they did CG to make it from the point of view of the hole of the bowling ball.
That is incredible.
Yeah,
It's perfect. I mean, just to imagine being picked up, and it takes a minute. You're going, what is going on? And then, bam, you go. This is one of the most creative shots in films. I mean, it's just
yeah.
fantastic. Uh,
There's a lot of repetitive dialogue, shall we say? I wrote it. I found this. I didn't count these myself, but I found it and wrote it down. The F word was used 292 times. Uh, uh, dude was spoken 161 times and displayed on screen during one of his fever dreams once.
right.
And he said man 147 times.
That is incredible. I had to in about 2 hours to fit all that in. That is
Yeah.
amazing. And Ben Gazzara. I love the fact that because he is, to me, he is an underrated actor, fantastic actor. Was in, what was the TV show he was in that you just, where he had
That was The Fugitive.
The Fugitive. Oh, yeah, right. And then also the one where he had a certain amount of time to live. Um,
Run for Your Life.
That's it. I always think of him as, Run for Your Life, but just and just gives so much to the part. He was absolutely perfect. Philip Seymour Hoffman, you mentioned David Huddleston as the Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Julianne Moore, we talked about her. that just
Tara Reid, who played Bunny, her license plate said Lupin, or Lapin, Lapin, and that is French for bunny.
oh my goodness. Yeah, that is. And then Peter Stormare, oh yeah, got a terrific filmography.
Yeah,
Yeah, John Wick, yeah, it
Jimmy Dale
started with.
Gilmore had one scene as Smokey. He
Say
was
that
the one.
again.
Jimmy Dale Gilmore was Smokey. He was the one who supposedly had stepped over the line.
Ah, that's right.
Asked
That's
about it
right.
in interviews later, he said he'd never tell if he stepped over the line really or not.
That's amazing. That is, it's yeah, it's just it is the best. This is probably as well as yeah, as well as the Coen brothers cast a film. This has got I think Oh Brother Where Art Thou has got a lot of smaller parts and kind of character actors
Yeah.
that just bring everything they can to those parts. This film is equally good. It's just
Well, I
outstanding and
think if you
fantastic.
look at any of the Coen brothers films, they're all about character. They didn't really care what the plot was. They stick something there so it moves. But otherwise, what they're doing is introducing you to all the characters and showing you just in this case how they're all making stuff up. The
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
Lebowski is pretending to be the rich industrialist when he's living on an allowance. We have Walter, who has all kinds of troubles. We have Donnie, who is just kind of the hanger on, and in the eulogy they give for him, he liked to go to the beach and go bowling. And they mentioned bowling about 6 or 7 times during his eulogy before he lapses into all the people he lost in Vietnam.
But
But
you get in, and you
yeah,
get into yeah with John Goodman trying to somehow connect yeah characters being connected to who they are not, like the way whereas in the film it's whereas the characters um, are often playing who they are not, and just you got me to thinking with Donnie. Even John Goodman tries to bring him into Vietnam, and that gets the dude furious because he didn't have anything to do with Vietnam. It's kind of and kind of in the Coen brothers, when you look at it, you're thinking of like the auteur theory, you're thinking of sense of authorship, and with a lot of directors, you can say, some definable things that there's connected to a sense of authorship. The best I can come up with, and I'll give M. Keith Booker, who writes a lot of really good, books that get into
uh huh,
some theory, auteur theory, and things like that. He, at the end of the day, he kind of it's kind of like to me, it felt like it's these characters are not being authentic, and maybe the only people that are is the dude, and a crime in a Coen Brothers film, and you'll be excoriated, you'll be they use satire, but a crime is not being authentic. You've got to be true to yourself. You've got to be authentic, and so they parody that in their films all over the place.
yeah, there was no money in the briefcase. Uh, Near the end, Walter wants his underwear back from the ringer that he threw out, and
Yeah,
which
I
interesting
put
little
all his
story.
underwear. Yeah.
Interesting little story behind that. They tried several times throwing it out of the car and couldn't get the right look to it. So what they finally did was they filmed it in reverse. They backed the car up and had a stagehand throw the suitcase back up to the car, and that's how they got the right look for the throwing
That's how,
out.
that is a yeah, that is a terrific technique you can do by knowing that you're going to reverse the shot, reverse the footage. You can do there's a lot you can do that otherwise you can't do. Back in shooting, when I'd be shooting with Super 8, the one trick was when you knew you were going to take the film literally and then reverse it, was you had to hold it was kind of, it's strange, but you had to hold the camera upside down,
Yeah,
because when you reverse the film, if you but you could make it look like, then reversing it, you could by backing up a car, you could make it look like it's coming right toward the camera and then shake it. There was some neat, but I did not know they did that with that shot. Yeah, this
yeah,
film is at the cusp. I love it. It's at the cusp of some early digital, and yet they've got to do so much more stuff, real hands-on, authentic in front of the camera to make it work. Like put the camera on a barbecue spit. I mean,
Yeah.
that is doing things in front of the camera. I'm sure there was some digital stuff, the dreams, some good chroma key stuff like the dream and the rug and
Yeah.
stuff like that. One last thing about that authentic too is that, and this is where I kind of it started to pull it together for me. M. Keith Booker was alluding to a lot of that in the article. But when you look at the Eagles, and I like the Eagles, but the dude does not. And he doesn't like the Eagles because he felt like they are they're that second wave of musicians. You had the true authenticity of the counterculture music, like CCR, from that the dude loved from the 60s. But the Eagles were that consumerist second wave version of them that were more in it for the money than the authenticity.
Or then it could be a lot simpler than that. The music playing when John Turturro was at the bowling alley was playing through the PA in the bowling alley
Right.
was the Eagles. What was it? Hotel California in Spanish.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And all the music, by the way, came from somewhere. There was no just background music in the film. All the music emanated from something that was there, either the headset in the dude's Walkman, or the PA in the bowling alley, or a stereo that's playing in the Big Lebowski's house, or in the other big guy. I forget his name now.
Well, since we've used some words you don't. What was the word you said? Paraquat
Or what?
and yeah, and pederast. We'll use another one. Then what this is interesting, and I did not notice this. What you're talking about then is that this music is diegetic music. Diegetic
Yes,
music occurs within the film,
that's
and
correct.
non-diegetic music is like when we bring in John Williams, and it's the score of the film, the soundtrack of the film. Whereas
Right.
the musical score, whereas this is really what he's listening to it in the film itself. That's called diegetic music, and I did not notice that. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
Treehorn's house, where there was music, it was kind of middle of the road music, and that was coming from his own stereo. So they had obvious places where music was coming from in all the places where there was any music used.
And of course, with the Coen brothers, it's going to be authentic music. For all they're
Now, the
constantly.
outside of universe reason the Eagles weren't used was T-Bone Burnett doesn't like the Eagles.
We'll say that again. Oh, did not like the
No,
Eagles.
he did not.
That is fascinating. The Eagles do not. They kind of take it on a chin on the film.
They do, and in fact, a Rolling Stones song that was used in there was licensed for $100,000, and a member of the Stones found that the main character didn't like the Eagles and waived the fee. And wanted to figure out some way that they could use the scene
It
where
waves the
Bridges says "effing Eagles" in one of their shows. I don't know if they ever did.
that is amazing. I could see the Stones having that mindset. The one that kind of connecting to this is kind of summing up, kind of because a lot of people try to find the philosophy of the Lebowskis, or the philosophy. I mean, the Coens,
Yeah,
or Lebowski himself. There's even an entire article devoted to the philosophy of Jeff Bridges, of Lebowski, as what is the philosophy of the dude. And of course, it's going to be a very laid back philosophy, almost just take it easy, let it go, just abide.
yeah,
And I'm going sideways on myself for 1 second, but the before I get back to this, but that article, it was a really interesting article, pointed out that whereas the dude abides, it, and that kind of philosophy. They said the one place where it's like there's places where if you had a strong sense of empathy, you might care for, like worried about Bunny. And he does seem to worry about Bunny, but is he more worried about feeling guilty? Because feeling guilty is going to, if you feel guilty, it's going to mess up the philosophy of abiding, because guilty, feeling guilty totally messes up that just an easy, carefree day. So some of the things, instead of doing things that are trying to do the right thing, the virtuous thing, because of virtue on its own, instead he's doing this thing not to feel guilty, and that would fit into a philosophy of abiding, of just taking it easy. The one quick
Yeah.
other thing I was going to say that kind of connects to, again, another theorist working on, you're working on the kind of the philosophy of the Coens. Um, this is the last paragraph in this chapter on this film. However, by offering this film talks about a critique of capitalism in the mode of absolute silliness, like the capitalism of the Eagles, turning some original counterculture thoughts kind of into a commodification by the late 70s. So, however, by offering a critique of capitalism in a mode of the absolute silliness, while offering no alternatives to the ethos of capitalism, other than the laziness of the dude or the pretentiousness of other artists such as Maud, the Big Lebowski ensures that no one will mistake it for a serious statement about politics or art or anything else. Here, as elsewhere in their films, the Coens abide. And
Yeah.
that's kind of an interesting thought, because that's one area where I kind of sometimes have a little trouble with the Coen brothers. Sometimes I want them to make a statement that's a little more definitive, um, like the film, where the a statement maybe against um, the film I'm thinking of. It was around. I think it was like a 2008 film, which talked. It's a Coen Brothers film. I'll look it up, but it talked about um, the blacklist, and it's set in Hollywood around the blacklist, and but even there, where you look at the blacklist as a terrible thing, that the Hollywood blacklist, and it kept actors from working because of really, being founded in the days of McCarthyism. There, the Coen brothers did not take a full stand against the Hollywood blacklist, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what they do. And once in a while, you kind of do want them to take a stand, but they, on the other hand, they're constantly going after anything that's not authentic, and it's maybe one thing you can pull together from the Coen brothers.
Yeah. I think that there's something to be said that what they seem to do is to make a very lightweight film that isn't lightweight. They,
Good
they
point.
they they don't have any big message in it, but at the same time, they have so much minutia in there. There's
Yes.
references to 1,000 different things, and I think that's part of what makes this so rewatchable. Is that you can just going through some of the quotes that I find in the film, there are things that just are just sneaked in there, and
Right.
it has nothing to do with anything of the plot, what plot there is, but it's more. You would find the dude describes himself as a dropout, and yet he's a little bit more literate than a lot of people would think.
Right, right. Completely more literate than you would think, and more and again, and characters with just some plain common sense and being true to themselves will come off well in a Coen Brothers movie, and those little bits add up. And Lord knows, there's you kind of get tired of films being hit over the head, where you're hit over the head by a film, and this is what it means. And the Coen Brothers let you do a lot of the thinking, which is really a delightful thing in a film. That it's what you, at the end of the day, we really do enjoy putting the pieces together ourselves. And there's so many fun little pieces they give us to put together.
Yeah, here's one of the last things that the stranger had to say. Once again, a good way of framing the film. It was a pretty good story, don't you think? It made me laugh to beat the band, parts anyway. I don't like seeing Donnie go, but then I happen to know there's a little Lebowski on the way. I guess that's the way the whole damn human comedy keeps perpetuating itself down through the generations. Westward the wagons, across the sands of time until we. Oh, look at me, I'm rambling again.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then there it goes. The film I was thinking of was Hail Caesar with George Clooney. And that's the one film, and really I shouldn't be. That's the one film where I was thinking, okay, this is a little. Maybe you need to take a stand a little bit more than you do here. But that's one exception amongst an entire body of uh, God, 24 films. I mean, I lose track of how many films. There's a
Yeah, they've
lot
done
of
quite a
Coen
few.
Brothers films,
Yeah,
and yeah, yeah, and that's the but other than but yeah, they do let you just kind of work. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, as you well, the stranger kind of provides the perfect reference for the Coen brothers, and you can apply that to almost all their films. By '98, they kind of had. I think they was perfect. They knew themselves. They were true to themselves. They knew who they were, and the stranger kind of reflects that.
yeah,
And did we mention Sam Elliott as the stranger? I think that
yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah,
We
terrific
were
casting.
talking about the fact that he didn't seem to fit in here, but then this is all kind of people that don't fit in anywhere.
That's
We
well put.
we
Yeah,
have some of the stereotypes like the May December marriage, the counterculture kind of daughter who really isn't, the Vietnam veteran Jewish convert who's just nuts, and the dude kind of in the middle of this being almost the normal one. And of course,
yeah.
they show that he's not really.
No, when you're normal guy, the first one of the first times we see him, yeah, in his bathrobe and what's he double checking? I mean, double checking the half and half, making sure.
Yeah.
I mean, after COVID, you would not want the dude to have gone through the half and half, checking each one individually.
Well, also, he wrote a check for 69 cents for the half and half, and something that they pointed out here, which you might not have caught in the film, was it was a post dated check.
Oh no, I did not see that. Yeah. So those
Now,
Rubik's Cube royalties are thinning out. Actually, that would not have worked. You'd make way too much money off Rubik's Cube in '98. You'd be living the
yeah,
life.
I think that's probably why they decided to stay away from that.
To
Uh,
stay away from that.
no,
Yeah,
nobody can make a show about living in L.A. and consider them not to be moneyed enough to afford an apartment. I mean, the housing prices are so high out there. I don't know how anybody that makes less than what we did at the height of our earning power would
right.
make.
Could live out there. The it's that's interesting. Your house prices would have still been, but it's amazing how much half and half has gone up in the in the 30
Well,
years.
yeah,
Yeah,
since 1989, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Or '98 is when that came out. Yeah,
98, yeah,
yeah.
and actually was oh, what was it that they it was in the early 90s that the plot was centered.
Right. Well, oh, that's true. That is true. It was set like 8 years in the past. It was really set right
Yeah,
around 90. H.W. Bush was still president. I
yeah.
think you even still you hear from him in the address and talking about the first Iraq War. Excuse me.
Yes.
Uh, but I love what you said about the pieces, the little pieces that add up in a film that you put together, and then you've got one thing that what did you I have never I've always liked bowling. I haven't gone bowling that much, but I thought they got the bowling alley perfect.
Yeah, I
Excuse me.
certainly the older type of bowling alleys they don't have anymore, where you had the transparency scorecard and uh, the bar there. I mean, these days they're now family bowling centers where they exist, and so the old style I haven't seen since I was a kid, and
Another
we did bowling a little bit while I was a kid, but uh, I I had a cousin who was going to Northwestern in Natchitoches, Louisiana,
Oh yeah.
and she was taking bowling as her PE. And
Ah,
I decided to razz her and wrote her back saying, "No, bowling is what you go to college not to have to do."
Exactly. That that's well put. Well, and a couple of other theorists mentioned, and I need to cite them in our comments. Besides M. Keith Booker, they mentioned that this is the Doric temple of the film. That the bowling alley kind of functions, and a Doric temple. I don't know my Greek mythology that well.
Hmm.
That was a place where the community maybe came together. And I'm kind of gathering it's a place, a communal place coming together, and it's a place of authenticity. Another kind of
Yeah.
getting back to the, and of course, speaking, it's like what happens after you stop living, where you feel like your life was at its most full, and you look at these characters, it's kind of like they stopped living in 1972 or so.
Yeah.
The dude comes right out of counterculture, not necessarily real political counterculture, but music counterculture of the early 70s.
He was probably an
um
anti-war thing. I think he mentioned to Maud that he had traveled with I forget who he said he traveled with, and one of the rock bands in a
that's
fake
right.
tour, and then it might have been the Stones. He traveled with the Stones at one point, and then he was part of the Berkeley riots or something like that. It
And
was never.
does he mention the Seattle Seven at one point or
He
something
was
like
one of the Seattle Seven. I was the Seattle Seven. He said, me and six other guys.
That's right. So he was much more committed in some respects to a political point of view, and but then kind of has left that. John Goodman strips, never left Vietnam.
Yeah.
A quick question: did they in the film as it is? Did he serve in Vietnam, or did they, or is that? Do we know that he was really
In
there?
the film, he was in Vietnam.
He really was.
In
Okay.
earlier treatment, they had him that he had imagined that pretty much as he'd imagined converting to Judaism.
It was going to be that inauthentic. And of course, Ben Gazzara, his view of porn is like it was more pure and authentic in the 70s, and now it's not. But I still, yeah. So, so yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of that. They're coming out of the seven, just never really left the 70s for some of the characters, and maybe they felt like that their best life was lived back there.
Yeah, it's something of that. But one of the things I really like are the little things they put. Before we go there, I want to talk about the car. The car itself, which is a four-door Ford
Oh,
Torino, uh,
yes.
took more punishment than anybody on the cast. And
Yeah,
every time you saw this car, it had been more damaged than the time before.
yeah, yeah.
At first, it's beat up because it was stolen. The rear view mirror on the driver's side is gone, and the door won't open. And then the next time they get the windows busted out, and another time he runs into a dumpster,
Well, that's when he's
yeah,
that's when he's smoking the last little bit of his joint,
and drops it.
and
Yeah,
the yeah, and because that detective
it's
was
following him. Yeah,
messing with him in the VW. Yeah, that car is, it really made me impressed. That was, talk about steel. That car could take everything. It finally took setting it on fire to get rid of it. I thought it wouldn't come back after it hit the dumpster, but
I thought it wouldn't come back after the first time, but
yeah,
that's the thing. It was a they say there were two cars used for the film. The first one was utterly destroyed, and the second one made it all the way years later to the X Files and was destroyed on that film on that show.
no,
Yeah,
the X Files. That is too cool. That's awesome. That second film, that is amazing. And that leads us when the kid with the homework, and they track down the kid can't do his social studies, does and it gets criticized heavily. You don't know your social studies, kid. And so they track at the kid that they're trying to find the briefcase with they think it's got $1 million in it. It never had $1 million in it, but they're trying to find a million. They had phone books in it. They're trying to
right.
find that, and they go to, which is interesting. They go to the writer of Branded, which again is dealing with actually kind of another theme. And I gotta cite my source, M. Keith Booker. Booker talks about it's in some respects the lack of authenticity when it comes to manhood. It seems like there's a lot of overcompensation in the film, and of
Yeah,
course, and he tracks that. He kind of you look at Branded, where you're trying to prove you're a man. In Branded, I forget what treasonous thing the character of Branded did. The old series Branded. It was at a Chuck Connors. I think that maybe an old Chuck Connors show.
branded.
And yeah, Branded. That
Yeah,
Chuck
they they
and
they actually they actually created a character who presumably wrote 146 episodes of Branded, and the most of the series. The actual series lasted 2 years of like 42 episodes.
42. Right,
but
exactly
but
right.
and the actual main writer of Branded was upset that they depicted essentially him as someone in an iron lung, which he was still living in, and saw the
Still
picture and
living and healthy at
didn't
the
like the
time.
way he was being characterized, even as a fictional character.
That well, I thought they were fairly respectful of him because they loved the writing. There was no critic. Well, what had the do you? This is a tough question. I don't mean to be because it's been so long since I've seen Branded. But what was the? Well, here I've got it right. Wait a minute,
Well, it was Chuck
I've
Connors. It
got
was
it right
Chuck.
here.
Yeah, it was Chuck
False
Connors. He
charges.
was a Union soldier that was accused of cowardice, obviously a mistaken identity. And the beginning of the show, they showed the his commander breaking his sword over his knee and throwing it at him.
Yeah,
And so he has to prove that he's a man through the entirety of the series.
prove that he's a man. We're
Yeah.
talking masculinity under fire is the way that M. Keith Booker talks about it. And that is such a strike. I was not a huge Branded fan. I remember seeing that when
I
it
used to
came on.
watch it. Yeah.
That break, yeah, right. That is a striking image of being charged of cowardice and then breaking the
There was
sword.
a Mad Magazine cartoon, by the way, of opening of Branded, where the commander cuts his leg off. But
With the set. Oh, that's great. That is. I gotta find that. That is, the so it's so it and the song is wherever you go for the rest of your life, you must prove you're a man. So he points out the song and the series thus both resonate as one of the central concerns of the Big Lebowski, embattled masculinity,
yeah.
a theme that is particularly reinforced in the many images of threatened castration that run throughout the film. There's
Well,
the
there's one
threats of
point
the
where Maud says to the dude, the brain is the biggest erotic area, and he says back, maybe to you.
right. That's it. Yeah, exactly. That's a great line. Another image of castration that comes in, and it's hard to watch when the German nihilists throw in the marmot.
Yeah.
The dude apparently it's a ferret, but the dude thinks it's a marmot in the tub. That is what that's fairly
Yeah,
frightening.
it
That
is.
was well. Did they? I don't know if they really threw something in the tub behind the
Yeah,
scenes
they
or
did. They threw it. Well, I don't know how they handled it, but I mean, obviously,
yeah.
it looked like he was just trying to get out rather than attack anything.
The mentions all the characters are ineffectual. The Walker certainly works hard to establish his masculine power, yet he remains henpecked by his ex-wife. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
here's the exchange with the nihilist. We believe in nothing, Lebowski, nothing, and tomorrow we come back and we cut off your Johnson. Excuse me, I said they cut off your Johnson. Just think about that, Lebowski. Yeah, your wiggly part, Lebowski. Yeah, and maybe stomp on it and squish it, Lebowski. That was the nihilist.
right, and that's funny because here they are espousing a philosophy of believing in nothing, and yet they are excoriated. They do not come off well. Believing, almost nothing nihilism, but but they don't come off well in the film. And speaking of the challenged manhood, the character of Huddleston, the Big Lebowski, is nothing like what it really. And that's funny. John Goodman plays Walker. He is henpecked. He babysits the dog for his ex-wife, I think. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, yeah.
Well, the wonderful thing is, and they don't say a word about it, as they're leaving the bowling alley, the dog is running alongside and he's carrying the carrier. He puts the carrier in the car, they get in the car and leave. And we don't
Right.
know whatever happened to the dog.
Whatever happened to the dog? That's a great point. That is a great point. Oh my goodness.
Which they said that he was a Yorkie, and he actually was something else, a terrier of some sort.
How about the back in the bowling alley, which again, it's so authentic. It has all the feels of it. You know, again, this temple where where maybe where they really come out as maybe who they really are. Um, What about the scene because there's two dreams, and one dream is in the bowling alley, and the we talked about how the bowling ball. How about anything other special effects in the bowling alley? Because it comes across as one of those was it Berkeley, all those big '30s productions.
Yeah.
It kind of comes
Busby
across as
Berkeley,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, Busby Burke. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, there was a trick that some of the dancers played on Jeff Bridges. You know,
Whoa.
in
Okay.
that scene, he is on his back floating underneath all
Right.
these women with short skirts. They
Yes.
thought it would be fun, and they went to the art director and they asked for merkins to put outside their tights, so as he was going under, he would be seeing pubes basically. And each one was a little more generous than the last one. They were trying to break him as he went through that.
You can tell he almost breaks at a certain point because it looks
Yes,
like they put him on that spit that they used for their yeah,
almost.
yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, that is everything you could do to a ball. That yeah, it just somehow all adds up in an incredible way. And so there's that dream and the dream with the and then of course he goes down like a bowling ball would fall down in the first dream where he's
Yeah.
following along with the like magic carpet. Any other dreams? I was trying to think of the because Dream certainly had a powerful. You know, he is not given an easy time in this film. The dude, he abides. There's a lot for him to abide through.
Yes. I have not been able to find that line, "the dude abides," because the stranger basically says that it's something along the line of uh, the fact that he lives and does what he wants is a relief to us sinners elsewhere, or some such like that. It's a good line.
That's a good line. Again, he's true to himself, which is a relief to us sinners elsewhere.
Yeah,
Uh, that's it'd be interesting to compare Raising Arizona with this film because that was the first film that got me
yeah,
into the Coen brothers, and it's got a lot of similarities. And I say that, but it's just more an instinctual feeling that but you'd have to go back and line them up and really see the similarities. But it just feels that there's a lot of connections.
yeah.
Of course, it's a Coen
Well,
brothers
as the
film.
dude says himself, this is a very complicated case, Maud. You know, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, and a lot of strands to keep in my head, man. A lot of strains in the old duder's head. And
Right.
I think that kind of speaks to us. We're trying to figure out just really what's going on here. If you weren't familiar, especially if this was the first Coen Brothers movie you've ever seen, you would
Oh,
find that this is completely bizarre. But if you get used to their
oh,
style, this follows right along with what they do, which
follows
is
right
which is
along.
put kind of a plot and then tear it up on the way out.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, as a mystery, it actually you weave in and out just like the dude's mind. But at the end of the day, it actually is pretty good. Where the guy's extorting, he took the $1 million. The Big Lebowski takes the $1 million from the foundation, steals the money, and is going to end up, working to keep the money. It's going to be like it disappeared, which would be the perfect crime. And when the dude talks, sometimes when he'll say it's so complicated, the weaving in and out, and I'll be thinking, no, it's not that complicated. It's complicated. And then you realize, no, it really is that complicated by the end of the day. And I love the way Bunny just comes back
Yeah,
from her apparent kidnapping, gets
yeah.
more and
Well,
comes
which
back
which
home.
is interesting that the dude was right all the time. and Walter before that, that she kidnapped herself in order
He
to
was
get the money, and
exactly
that somehow the oh, what's his name, Treehorn found out about it,
right,
and so
right.
he sent out his porn actors to be the nihilist and rough up the dude. Which, interestingly, they pick up the bowling ball and say, "What's this?" And he says, "Obviously, you're not golfers."
Yeah, that's a, that's a great line. And another great. I love John Goodman's line. His lines he's are so brutal and specific, and he makes his character. You can actually see him thinking this fast. That John Goodman, he even mentions, "And your nine-toed girlfriend." And in the midst of a bunch of Vietnam napalm talk, he throws out the nine-toed girlfriend at the nihilist. And truth is, she's got nine toes.
Yeah.
He had figured it out at that point.
So anyway, that's almost all the time we've got to do this. This has been,
Good point.
uh,
The only
you
thing I
know,
can think of, were there any food choice? We talked about dreams. We talked
they
about set
hardly they
time.
hardly ate anything. It
I
was all
know.
White Russians. And he
White
mentions in a
Russians.
place, he calls it into a bartender, and I think also in one other place he calls it Caucasian. And he's not playing with the word. That actually, the drink was invented in the Caucasian area of Siberia, which is
The
why they call it the White Russian. It was the Caucasus.
the Caucasus. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Is that
Yeah,
what that's called? Yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah,
only food, actually, the other one is what is the In-N-Out burger? Because they were so
yeah.
excited they're
They
going to go
mentioned that,
rough
although
up the
when they're
kids.
eating it, they don't show the in and out
No.
packaging. So I don't think they licensed that. But anyway, we've got to go, and we seem to have some audio problems on your side. So we're going
Thank
to,
you.
yeah, we're going to. It may be me. I may have a problem here, but I hear some motorboating there. So, but
Gotcha.
we have some movies to talk about. We've narrowed it down to about 5, so that's what we're going to do next week. So we hope that you will join us then. And in the meantime, if you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, it doesn't matter if you know how it ends.
No,
It's the real entertainment in this movie is just all of the little twists and turns and character peccadillos that it has, like they do in just about all the Coen brothers films. So thank you for joining us, and hope that you will come back next week, and we'll have something else hopefully equally interesting to talk about.
absolutely.
until then, don't go far.